Hey guys, JB of the Wolf of Wall Street in the new Wolf's Den. New house, new location, beautiful pool, the hills of Beverly behind me. I have an awesome guest today. Normally I do a nice warm up here and I tell you my thoughts and feelings of the day here, but this guest is a special one. A guy named Robert Beadles, brilliant guy in the crypto space, probably one of the few people I really respect. We've had a great conversation in the past about crypto. You all know I'm a bear. I'm not a believer in the space. I always loved blockchain, but didn't like the inflationary aspects of crypto. I thought it was destructive. I knew when it was up at 20,000. I predicted almost to the day that it would crash. That's public information, right? And I'm surprised it still exists. But interestingly enough, when I spoke to Beadle about this, he gave me a different viewpoint on it. One that's far more sober than the nonsense I was hearing back when it was at 18, 19,000. And I think what really bothered me most about Bitcoin, because it was so obvious to me what was happening, when it was at 15, 18, 19,000, right? The only way to get suckers to keep buying Bitcoin was to tell people it was going to 100,000 to 1 million. In other words, as it kept getting higher and higher, the only way to get new people in to speculate was tell them it's going to 50,000, 100,000, 250,000 by the end of the year. Nonsensical stuff. That was a bunch of self-serving people looking to pump up the price of any security or instrument so they could cross themselves out. That's why I was really, really heavily against Bitcoin. Also, my second thesis was that, listen, the governments are not going to allow this to happen. They're not going to allow Bitcoin to replace a currency. The thought that this would replace the dollar was nonsensical. And all these Bitcoiners are running around saying it's the next thing that's going to replace all currencies. And that's why it's going to 1 million or 100,000. It's just so nonsensical and stupid that it just completely turned me off of it. On the other hand, I saw applications for blockchain technology in many, many different fields, right? Beadles is different. He actually has been investing in Bitcoin, but he thinks those people like I do are just insane, that they're self-serving. He doesn't look at Bitcoin as a source of transactions. Again, another thing I heard, like the Winklevoss brothers saying it's the next big thing is going to replace, all currency and people making transactions in Bitcoin, which was nonsensical to me. Beadles believes in that too. But we had a really interesting discussion today. So I always tape my introduction before, right? I always hedge myself by doing it after. So I tape the introduction after, not before, right? So I know what happened. I can kind of fill in the blanks, right? Anyway, he's awesome. And we end the podcast with a bet, okay, which is going to be for December 31 of this year. And I'll let you speculate as to what that is about. But listen to the podcast now. Got a quick word from our sponsor, namely me. And then after we're done with that, we'll go right into this awesome, awesome podcast with me and Beadles. He's a real winner, and there's so much info in here, so much to glean. You do not want to miss this, all right? So let's take a quick break here for a second. I'll be back to the interview. This is a perfect time now to take a brief pause here, and I'm going to give everybody here a gift. I'm going to give everybody here free access to the introduction and the first training module to the formalized straight line certification program. This is a system that I sell for $5,000 here to individuals, to large corporations, medium-sized corporations as well, right? It's a very robust, interactive training with quizzes and exams. It's ultimately a diploma-based course that changes people's lives. But I figure what I'll do here is like 12 or 13 modules, but I'm going to give everybody, this is not one of those free things where I say, and you have to enter your credit card, and I hope you don't then forget to cancel. No. I'm talking really free. I'm going to just simply give you a link, and you sign up for it, and you get access to the introduction, then the first training module, which is the 5 core elements of the straight line, cracking the code for sales and influence. This alone will change your existence. Just understanding what has to go into getting someone to buy from you. And again, there's no obligation. You're not putting a credit card in. You have to just enter your information here. And then after you're done, once you've gone through this, if you want to keep going, then we can have a conversation about you picking up with the rest of the training. But this first part of it is free. My gift to you. All right. Let me give you the link. The link is jordanbelfort.com. Simple, right? /bonus. BONUS. So after you're done listening to this podcast, go to jordanbelfort.com / that's a /bonus. BONUS. And you'll be on a page. You enter your information, and that will give you access to this incredibly robust training. You're going to get the introduction and the first module, which includes the quizzes, the exercises. And I promise you that when you're done with this first module, you are going to be blown away. All right. So like I said, there are some people out there. You get to a certain level in your life, you don't even need two names anymore. You should have a name. It's like Madonna, Sting, J-Lo, right? And then there's Beadles, my man, by the way, who I have massive respect for. So we were in a mastermind together. It was my mastermind. He attended. He did a great job at really helping other people clarify their visions. And him and I had some great conversations. I thought that it would be the perfect person to have on my podcast. We have a lot of the same views, some different views. But one of the things I really want to focus on here is cryptocurrency, because it's very interesting because, I've always been a big bear on cryptocurrency, especially back in 2017. I mean, I haven't been a bear on blockchain technology, and I haven't even been I would say a bear on cryptocurrency in terms of it, that it could potentially be a storehouse of value. What I didn't like about cryptocurrency was two things. I thought the inflationary aspects of cryptocurrency made it impossible to use as a viable mechanism for transactions, like currency, so to speak. And I thought that the run-up in value was also negative, even as a storehouse of value, because anything that goes up that fast can go down that fast, right? And I think while you want to have some appreciation in terms of as a storehouse of value, why not? But on the other side, if that is that much volatility, it's almost like you can't depend on it, because if you get in at the wrong moment, you're destroyed. So what say you? Tell me your views on where, let's start with Bitcoin, right? And, do you think it's at a fair value right now? Where do you think it's going? And do you think it's a good investment for the average person?
All right. So, I guess Bitcoin is worth whatever people are willing to pay for it, right? So do I think it's overpriced? It doesn't really matter what I think. It matters what the people out there think. Bitcoin offers a lot of value to certain sets of people, right? So speculators, for people that are expected to go up, like so many people out there say it's going to go to $1 million or more dollars. That's something you'll never hear me say. I'm not one of those guys that talks like that at all. I've always called it kind of a plan B currency. And what I mean by that is people have their federal dollars, their federal notes. Like we have the dollar, other people have, different currencies, whether it's a peso or the boulevard, whatever it is. And in some of these countries, their currency gets so bad, so quick from some of their governments, poor decisions, or whether it's inflation, whatever. Bitcoin offers those people a way to actually transact value peer to peer. So those people can, if they had to buy bread or they had to buy, fuel, or they had to pay rent or something like that, they could do that with Bitcoin. As far as this movement of people that say it's going to replace our currency, I think they're delusional. I'm sorry, but it's more of a store of value. That's the way that I and a lot of other people kind of see it, because most people aren't spending it. Most people don't use it for daily commerce. Merchants usually don't accept it, don't really want to deal with it because of the volatility. Like one day it could be up 30%. The next day it could be down 50%, like we saw in January, right? So running a business, it's really difficult to do that on cryptocurrencies, especially something like Bitcoin, where it's not pegged to anything. It's just kind of out there in the wild, and it's worth whatever people are willing to pay for it. We saw it go from, less than a penny all the way up to, over $20,000. And then we saw it crash back down into the $3,000 range. And there's another movement of people out there that say that doesn't matter. One Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. And I say that those people are also delusional. When you have to tell your wife, it's like, hey, babe, I just spent $20,000 on a Bitcoin, right? I just spent $20,000 on a Bitcoin, and now it's worth $3,000. She's like, you just lost $17,000.
But it's still a Bitcoin. No, it's still a Bitcoin.
But Bitcoin's worth one Bitcoin. I hear people in the space say that stuff all the time, and it's just like, there's people that say things just to kind of justify their actions. They kind of make up excuses. Everybody does it in life. Why they failed, why they did this, why they did that. But that's one I just don't get. One Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin. And this isn't going to be popular in the community, in the crypto community either. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but it's just silliness. I mean, if you bust your ass and you work 40 hours a week and you have, money set aside for rent or for your bills, and you use that to buy Bitcoin and it drops 50% in value, I mean, that's pretty horrible, right?
Yeah. So, well. Here's the thing, Beadles. It's the equivalent of the people in the stock market that say, I haven't taken a loss till I sell it. No, the fucking stock is down. You took a loss because it's marked to market. So it's not actually that much of an uncommon view. So just, for all those people who are thinking that, yeah, you're wrong and you kind of need to get a reality check, but you're the equivalent of those people in the stock market that say, as long as I don't sell, I haven't taken the loss. Really, well, go to the person that's going to give you a margin call, or if you want to use it as collateral, and they won't, so it's the same thing, right? What do you in the early days, I mean, I looked at Bitcoin, and there were things that, it was such a close parallel to what had happened at Stratton Oakmont in terms of my firm, inflation. When you see too much interest chasing, an illiquid asset, and in my mind, manipulation's based on two things. When most people think of manipulation, they say it's people driving up the price. That's only half the equation. The other half is the withholding of supply. So by keeping supply tight, you essentially create a scenario that's ripe for manipulation. How much of Bitcoin's rise up to 17,000 and its crash back down was the result of that? And if so, was it intended to be that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. There's actually people that have done analysis on Bitcoin holdings, because there's only a couple thousand wallets that actually have substantial holdings of Bitcoin. It's actually very, very tiny. And so for people that don't know what Bitcoin is, it's basically a cryptocurrency. It's the world's first of sorts that actually worked, created by a guy or group of people or a woman named Satoshi Nakamoto. It went live back January 4th, 2009, something like that. The white paper came out, I think, on Halloween 2008. Anyways, there's not that many people that have large bags of Bitcoin. And if you look at them, a lot of them, aside from the exchanges, really don't move it that much. So you're right, it kind of keeps the demand because there's not a huge supply. But one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin, provided the core devs don't screw this up, is there's only 21 million Bitcoin that won't ever be created. So it creates this level of scarcity because there's billions of people, almost 8 billion people or so in the world. So not everybody can own a Bitcoin. They can own Satoshis, which are like pennies, and where the Bitcoin's like $1. So there's 100 million Satoshis per one Bitcoin. So people could own Satoshis, but they could never own a full Bitcoin. So the demand and the scarcity, well, the scarcity is definitely there. The demand, it depends. It depends on the use cases. And right now, most people are using it for digital gold. If you look at the big wallets that have these huge supplies of Bitcoin, large holdings, they're not selling, they're not moving it. It's just the exchanges. And so when you see big wallets that are moving stuff all the time, it's the exchanges for the most part.
What do you think about some of these exchanges? Like, I heard about some kids that own one exchange and they made all this money. And these exchanges, real exchanges, are they viable? Is there certain, like, where is there, here's my opinion on this. And I get very concerned because, and this is nothing to do with Bitcoin, it has to do with people. Anytime there's a lack of transparency in a market, bad things always happen. This is not about Bitcoin. This is about markets in general. You saw it happen with junk bonds. You saw it happen with, with the credit default swaps. Is when there's a lack of transparency and no one really says what something is worth, and there's a lack of regulation. Bad things always happen because there are bad people. So it only takes a few really bad apples to spoil the bunch. Seriously, it's a cliche, but most cliches are cliches because they're actually true, right? So what do you think about, what protects Bitcoin in the sense that from, bad actors? Is it just a percentage of more good actors than bad actors? What is it?
So with the protection of Bitcoin, it's actually the blockchain, right? So that it doesn't really matter how many bad actors you have out there because so many people have tried hacking the blockchain to, steal the funds or whatever. That's really not the threat. The threat is people that don't own their own seed or own their own keys. And what that means is for people in cryptocurrency, if you leave your crypto on an exchange, this is like a centralized exchange. This is where there's a person that owns this exchange. It can be hacked. And so whatever crypto you have on it, say all your Bitcoin's on it, if it gets hacked, you lose all your Bitcoin. There's no FDIC. There's nothing like that. You're screwed, right? So if you don't control your crypto, if you don't leave it on like a decentralized wallet like Monarch, if you don't hold the seed and keys to your funds, you're at the mercy of hackers. You're at the mercy of bad actors. And you can see there's been billions and billions of dollars stolen.
Mt. Gox, for example, right? Early on, right? That was how the first one I saw, right?
Perfect example. So Jed McCaleb created this, cool site, sold it to this idiot. This idiot didn't run it right, lost all the people's money. People say that maybe he embezzled it. I don't know what happened, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that are hurting that lost all their Bitcoin. So when you leave your money on exchanges, it's no longer your money. You know what I mean? It's like if you left $1 million in your Chase Manhattan account and Chase went out of business, maybe the FDIC will give you $250,000, but you're kind of screwed on the rest of it. So you try to put your stuff into assets that you control. Whenever you leave something on an exchange, it is an attack vector that has been exploited over and over again from the people that create the exchanges or people that are smart enough to hack the exchanges. And even with decentralized exchanges, which is kind of the new thing it's been around for a while. They're just a little clunky and stuff like that. But even if they find an error in the code there, you can lose your money. So the moral of the story is always control your own crypto. Don't leave it on an exchange. I don't care if it's a decentralized one. I don't care if it's a centralized one. Make sure that you're holding your own crypto in your own decentralized wallet so nobody can hack your money except you.
So yeah, right. So the equivalent in Wall Street is something called depository trust. So DTC was the place where all stock certificates were basically held, right? And then you would essentially be clearing firms were like the bigger firms like Bear Stearns, Merrill Lynch, and what back in the day, right? Lehman Brothers, they went out of business and people did lose money, right? But the certificates themselves were held in depository trust. So it was some place where they all were theoretically located and then they were electronically transferred in these trades. So it's very simple. But I guess the question is something like Monarch, which is a platform you created, correct?
Yeah, myself and some of the best and brightest in crypto, yeah.
How explain to me exactly how Monarch works. So is Monarch like the equivalent of depository trust or no? You're not holding anything there theoretically. It's just is it the storehouse of where all the information is held? Is that what it is?
So kind of. Monarch does a lot of different things. So I'll start with the simple side of things with the wallet itself. All right. So the wallet is a decentralized wallet, which means that we don't have access to your information. We don't know how much crypto you have. We don't know your seed. And the seed, basically, you can put it in any other wallet and get access to your funds. I don't want to go into too deep into the weeds, but imagine that you have your own smartphone. You have a Monarch wallet on it. You and only you control the funds. So the money is being placed on your cryptocurrency is placed on these different blockchains. Monarch allows you the ability to interact with those blockchains. It does not custody anything. So it doesn't have any money. It doesn't have any access to your keys, your seed, your funds whatsoever. It just allows you to interact with these different blockchains so you can move your cryptocurrency or store your cryptocurrency there. Not like we're Chase Bank or something like that and we have it in our vault or something like that. No, we never custody it. So we allow people to safely store, send, and receive their cryptocurrency. Then we have the decentralized exchange that's built right into Monarch so they can actually start swapping cryptocurrencies back and forth for one another. Then we give them the ability to buy and sell cryptocurrencies if they want. We give them the ability to manage and track their portfolios, keep up with all the news, the markets. So basically, you're a walking, talking bank. You can go anywhere in the world, and you and only you control your funds. It's incredible. It's the best wallet out there, in my opinion, bar none. And then we created Monarch Pay, which is for merchants. And so merchants, they get screwed all the time by PayPal, high credit card fees, all that kind of stuff, right? So we created a decentralized payment method that any merchant can use. They just plug it into their website. If somebody wants to pay in cryptocurrency, they can, and it can actually do recurring transactions. So every month it'll come from your customer directly into your merchant wallet, and only you two have the access to those funds, nobody else. You can turn it on or turn it off whenever you want, so can your customer, and every month it'll just pull money from their funds and put it into your funds. And so we created Monarch Pay for basically the merchants. So that way they don't ever have to worry about somebody shutting down their account, like PayPal is known to do, locking up their funds or clawing money back, or 2, 3%, 10%, 50%, depending on what platform you're using. Interest fees, it's like 1%. And if you use Monarch tokens, it's like 0.5%. So it's great for the world, for people who want to start using cryptocurrency. But one of the problems you'll find in the world is most people are only using cryptocurrency as stores of value. They think it's going to go up in value. And I always tell people that crypto as a method of payment or replacing any kind of government currency is just ridiculous. It's never going to happen. There's no way that any
I agree 1,000%. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, they'll never happen. Yeah.
No, it'll never happen. The only way that is going to happen, though, is if
a government, exactly. I've said that. I've said that from the very beginning. I said, yeah, I believe in this, the blockchain. I said the government's going to take it and create a cryptocurrency that they'll control. And the problem with that, I think, though, is if the government controls the crypto, what stops them from just saying, you're not a nice person. All of a sudden your money's electronically seized, and suddenly, you look in your wallet and it says, yeah, you have this, but it's all instantly frozen, and your wallet essentially cannot be used to transact business. That's the danger I see. What do you think about that?
1,000% true. That's what's happening in China right now. So in China, they've already, I think they got Alibaba, and they got a whole bunch of Tencent, a whole bunch of other huge companies that they're already testing their cryptocurrency with. So this would be a Chinese controlled cryptocurrency, and they would pay their people in it. So instead of getting paper dollars or credits in their bank account, they would be getting cryptocurrency, and it would be on their wallet. And so the Chinese government, or any government for that matter, if it's their cryptocurrency, not only does it allow them, like the central banks on steroids, they can print as much money as they want just by adding a couple decimals or commas or whatever they want to do. They can create as much crypto as they want, but then it takes it up to this Orwellian type scenario where if you're a bad
social credit scores, the social credit scores, right? Yeah,
exactly. So if they deem you as a bad actor, you're talking out against the politicians or whatnot, they could freeze your funds. They'll see where you use your funds. They'll be able to claw those funds back. They'll be able to freeze your funds. So many terrible things that they could do. And like I told you, at OA, I'm like, I've always said that blockchain and cryptocurrency is, the greatest, gift to humanity.
The worst nightmare.
Yes, or the greatest enslavement. So the greatest freedom or the greatest enslavement of the masses is through cryptocurrency, and only time is going to tell what happens there. So it is great that Bitcoin is out there, because this is outside the confines of the government. So it still allows people to transact, but it'll never replace the dollar. Don't jump on that bandwagon. How
much liquidity is there in the market in Bitcoin? For example, let's say you decided tomorrow you wanted to go buy a house for $10 million. And let's just say, you wanted to cash out $10 million in Bitcoin. Could you do that in one day?
Okay, so theoretically, yes, no problem. But then let me tell you the truth. All right, so when you look at all these exchanges have market makers, and you're very familiar with how that works. So all these numbers are super inflated when it talks about the daily volumes. So if you look at an exchange and it says, oh yeah, we did $100 million in Bitcoin transactions today, you say, oh yeah, that's 10%, no problem.
Internal trading crossing back and forth, yeah.
So you could sell 10 million, but everybody in the crypto space that's in tune is going to know, because they track all big movements of Bitcoin. And so if you're moving $10 million, it's going to send up whale alerts. People are going to know, and you're going to see the price start dropping. There's not enough liquidity. I mean,
that's the point. Yeah. So what's the amount you could sell without it sending up a flag?
So anytime you're moving large amounts of Bitcoin, anything over, say, probably 40, 50, people start paying attention. You start moving hundreds, people are really paying attention. Thousands, everybody's paying attention. So I'm not saying you
thousands of what? Bitcoins?
Yeah. There's OTC. You strike a deal with those, OTC guys, and you could probably move the 10 million. But if you tried to do it like on a regular exchange, I don't think it's going to happen. It's possible you could do it on Coinbase. It's possible you could do it on Binance. Some of the bigger, well-known exchanges that have more liquidity, that own a crap ton of Bitcoin themselves, like Gemini, like the Winklevoss brothers. You might be able to do it on maybe those 4 exchanges, but anything else, I don't really trust the data, the numbers coming out of them. So when they say they
would it be more like if you wanted to sell $10 million of Bitcoin, you'd have to say, I'm going to get 9 million for that 10 million. Like I have to bid it down. Like it's I'll do your block below the market, 10% below the market. I'll do 10 million at 9 million, which is, by the way, exactly how the regular stock market works. Just you have to add on a few zeros. Even in the large market, there's a certain point when a trade is so big that the market maker will bid below the market and say, you want to sell 100,000 shares of Facebook, okay, a quarter point down, whatever. So is it that what happens basically? Negotiated trades?
Yeah, when you're talking millions of dollars, I mean, if you're talking $100,000, no big deal. $1 million, probably not a big deal. But once you start crossing that $10 million threshold, you're probably going to have a little bit of bleed because the market's probably going to go down a little bit. So if you use an exchange, you'll probably be selling, let's just say at 10,000. And by the time you get done, you might be at 9,600, 9,500, somewhere around there. So you're going to have some bleed out. With OTC, they're going to expect a discount of sorts too. So
sure.
Yeah, You'll probably be, if you sold 10 million exactly, you'd probably end up being somewhere between 9 and 9.5 at the end of the deal.
Got it. Okay, so that's the large. Let's get down to the small. For the average individual that is, reading about Bitcoin, how does someone get started? First of all, should they get started in Bitcoin, or should they be going after some of these other lower priced currencies? Although theoretically, you just buy a percentage of Bitcoin, so you can buy one Satoshi, right? Which would be, how much is Satoshi right now to buy it? What would it cost you?
There's 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. So whatever 100 million divided by about somewhere between $9,000 to $10,000 is, that's how much it would be. Math is not my strong.
So not very much. Okay. So the question is, for the average person looking to get involved in crypto, should they go after Bitcoin or maybe Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash? What do you think is really the right way for the average person to enter the market?
So I've always said, never put any money in cryptocurrency you're not 100% willing to lose. Number one. So as soon as you're past that point, you're like, okay, I got $100. If I lose it, whatever. Then those are basically the three that I look at. So, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum. Those three I think are going to be around for the long haul and potentially be worth more in the future than they are today. I'm not one of those crazy people that gives out all these crazy, quotes of, it'll be $10 million in 2 years now. I don't do that.
That's what I love about your philosophy, because it's very sober. It's just sort of like, it's logical. I get it. Right.
It's gotta be. I mean, that's how I am in business. That's how I am with this stuff. In life, you just gotta keep your sanity, especially amidst all the insane stuff going on and insane people out there. So, but if they wanted to get started, those would be the three that I would recommend. And I would, again, recommend they never spend anything that they're not willing to lose. And where to do it at, I would say, again, Monarch, again, I'm tooting my own horn, but, you can buy and sell cryptocurrency right within the wallet. It's free. So it's free. It's easy to set up. It doesn't cost you anything to download. It's on Apple. It's on Android. It's super simple. There's other places like Coinbase. There's other places like Gemini. There's another Kraken. Those are kind of like the three most trusted in the United States. When you start going outside of the United States, you kind of start really ramping up your risk, because there's already there's more regulation piling on every single week. But when you're overseas, you really lose that kind of that power and control that you have here in the U.S. So
sure. Let me ask you this: Do you think that if someone was to get involved in Bitcoin right now, should they be doing it as a trader, like trying to trade in and out of the market, or is it more really just buy it, put it away, and hold it? What do you think is the smarter move right now?
So for me, there are people that they make their livelihoods by the arbitrage between the price point they buy and the price point they sell, and they trade quite a bit. However, about 99% of those people end up getting wiped out. And if they just held on to their currency, they would be fine for the most part. If you bought at 20,000, well, you're still screwed. All right. So
right. It's always like that. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it always, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell, as the old adage goes. So with Bitcoin, if you're going to buy it and you're thinking that it's going to be worth more money, I don't recommend you think it's going to be worth more money tomorrow. I recommend you set a price point, whatever it is in your brain. And when it hits that, that's when you sell it. People, if they start getting irrational and illogic about things and they're like, oh, it just pumped 25%. And then they go to sell it, maybe at the time they're selling it, it actually dips another 30% because it's super volatile and they could end up getting wiped out, or the next day it's less, or the next day it's more. And they're just thinking in their minds all the time, I should have done this, I should have done that. But if they just bought it and hold it and they just set their price point in the future, they're fine. You just kind of set it and forget it, because people are not using this stuff as currency. The only thing that I think they will use as currency are going to be government-controlled cryptos and or stable tokens. And stable tokens are basically cryptocurrencies that they remove the volatility for the most part. So it's pegged to $1. So you have $1 of a stable coin, it's worth $1. You can trade it for $1 in and out of the market and transact with merchants. And that's what we did with Monarch Pays, because merchants can't deal with the volatility, right? I mean, if you got payroll tomorrow and your Bitcoin just dropped 30%, what are you going to do, right? You're screwed. So that's why for merchants, I recommend stable coins and stable tokens. For people that want another asset class, another investment vehicle that may accumulate more money or more wealth in the future, I recommend those three, like Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum. Those are the three that I would recommend for people that want to get their toes wet, but not use it as currency, just use it as a store of value.
One of the things that always concerned me about crypto was that it was Bitcoin. It was based on complex calculations by computers, and what protected the network was that these calculations are so complex, take so much time, that it would be impossible to essentially crack the code on the blockchain, because the energy cost would be more than you could actually make, or you just simply couldn't do it because the algorithms are that advanced, right? There's just too many numbers involved, and it gets back into the whole thing of code breaking, so to speak, right? That's really what it's about. Is crypto is code, right? So it's code breaking. So you have to break the code. You can't do that, but we have this thing called quantum computing that we hear about, and I'd be lying if I said I was an expert at it. I know enough to be dangerous, right? I know the theory behind, and we had this conversation. I guess my concern was that quantum computing has the ability to make these seemingly infinitely large calculations all of a sudden do them in a second, and suddenly the blockchain now is prone to being cracked. You can, like any other code, it can be cracked if you have enough computing power. Imagine the aliens come down from another galaxy with their supercomputers, and now in that case we're all fucked, right? Because they're going to crack the Federal Reserve too. But the point is I'm just saying specifically for Bitcoin, like what happens when the computers if there's an advance that suddenly makes these calculations not that difficult?
Yeah, so there's a couple things there, right? So with quantum computing, the entire world would be at risk, every single financial sector. And when you look at cryptocurrency, we're not talking about a very big market compared to stocks or bonds or dollars or treasuries, any of that kind of stuff. However, when something like that does come out, and there's already first versions of like IBM has them out right now, where they're going to be able to do all these complex calculations for sure. But there's also going to be, just like we have now, you have white hat, you have black hat. So you're going to have quantum computing that's trying to attack, and you're going to have quantum computing that's trying to protect, just like we do right now as we're on Zoom, as we have, McAfee or whatever kind of spyware that we're using, or whatever we're using to try and keep our system safe. You're going to have that. So you're going to have the good and the bad fighting each other. When it may come for Bitcoin, there's nobody actually knows what will happen. Everybody can speculate and say, oh, it's totally fine. Bad things could happen, let's face it. But they could happen all over the place. And I think that Bitcoin is a very small piece in the ginormous financial puzzle that's out there.
I guess my point is that, so I look at the traditional financial system as being protected by every last ounce of intellectual strength that the United States government has in terms of the dollar. And like, in other words, there would be, I could see that because Bitcoin operates in the shadows, so to speak, that there's not going to be as many white hats, or it's just my opinion that it would be something that's like if you hacked Bitcoin, you couldn't. If you hacked the U.S. government, the Navy SEALs would come to your house and invade you and destroy your computer, and the NSA would be all over you. You would never get that far because the government would be so on the people. Like, this is what the whole CIA and the NSA are about, is protecting the integrity. I hope it is, besides do a lot of the bad shit too. But I'm saying in this one positive aspect, I would think they're protecting the financial institutions, right? The integrity of a financial structure, while they're probably not very much concerned with Bitcoin right now because it's small and it's in the shadows. So the idea would be, as a bad actor would be able to almost get away with it because they wouldn't feel the full weight and force of both the U.S. government, the Chinese government, the Russian government. They'd kind of be sliding in the shadows. Now, maybe the same thing is true. Yeah, but then again, you have enough good actors in Bitcoin right now. So you tell me, you see what I'm saying? What I'm getting at here? That you might be able to get away with it because it's not a priority.
No, I totally get what you're saying. And the diehards in the space, they'll have a different answer. But in theory, theoretically, we can say, oh, it's totally fine. But actually, we don't know what would happen. Just like, remember Y2K, everybody thought the whole financial system, everything was going to crash. Everything was going to hell. We're free.
There was so much money made on selling solutions for Y2K. I think half of it was the people trying to make money on Y2K, right? Nothing happened.
Exactly. So that could very well be the same thing with Bitcoin, or it could be the opposite. I really don't know. But in theory, Bitcoin gets harder. So when it has its own code. So like Google, for instance, is nothing but lines of code. For people that think it's this ginormous business and all this stuff, yeah, it's just lines of code that they've found a way to monopolize and plug in ad dollars to, right? But with Bitcoin, it's lines of code. And it gets harder the more competition you bring into the mining pool, right? So as you start bringing in all these miners competing to earn Bitcoin, it gets more difficult and more difficult, more difficult every couple of weeks. So in theory, Bitcoin would defend against that. However, never seeing a quantum computer actually, work.
Right, yeah. I think it's a stupid question I asked him. Honestly, of all the questions I'm going to ask you, that was probably the one. It's not that stupid. It's just more my imagine. It's like a what if imagine thing. Not like I don't really look at that as a legitimate risk. I really don't. That's my point. I don't say it's stupid. Just think it's more like just imagine if one day they could, right? Just imagine if one day a meteor hit the fucking earth and all of it ended. Who would really know, right? But I do have a different question. I think is very much potential problem. And this is the idea what originally really turned me off on Bitcoin, because I loved the idea of blockchain. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was elegant. I thought it had so many uses, the worst of which was Bitcoin. Like, to me, it's like, wow, this is so great for keeping track of records and this and that and people and tracking production lines, all this stuff. I said the dumbest use for me is a speculative instrument that is disguising itself as a currency. That being said, the other side was that, okay, well, that could be stupid or smart. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I just had been through in my own life watching the way the government went after me for laundering money. And I saw how they literally, over about a 15 or 20 year period, after about 20 years before that of trying, they finally clamped down on Switzerland and the overseas banking world. And they just put so much resources to stamping out money laundering. So now they're going to say, okay, great, Bitcoin, go ahead, just operate. That's fine. Just do that. Two sides of the coin here. One, why the fuck would the U.S. government allow this to happen? And two, maybe it's the best thing for the U.S. government because they actually know what's going on. And yeah, go have your Bitcoin because at any time we want, we can go in. What do you think?
Okay, so there's a couple things to this, right? So with Bitcoin, it's an immutable, transparent blockchain. So the transactions you made in 2009 are visible in 2030, right? 2090, whatever. So they're going to be able to see those transactions if they know what your wallet address is. And there's people hardcore in the space that say you never use the same wallet more than once. But bottom line, it goes to one wallet, you got to send it to another wallet. They can still track it. They have forensic tracking in blockchain. So the government knows like where the money's at, who's using it. People are getting caught all the time trying to launder money. So if you want to use a currency, and this is not advice, peeps, if you're trying to use a currency that can't be tracked, that you don't want people to know what you're doing with it, how much of it you have, you wouldn't use Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, the way I look at it, is a plan B currency for people like in Venezuela, or as basically a storage of value. If you're trying to do nefarious things, you wouldn't want to use Bitcoin. You'll get caught, period. I mean, that's the dumbest thing you can do. You would use a privacy coin, and I'm not going to name those off to help encourage this, but there's lots of privacy tokens and coins out there that have all kinds of bells and whistles that allow for stuff to operate in the shadows. And that's what those people use. They don't use Bitcoin. Yeah.
Makes sense, guys. So it's really just not made for that, and that's not the risk. Was it ever a risk and it changed? Like, did it start off as a legitimate concern and just evolved? The sheer size of it has made it not the right thing to launder money with, and or was it because originally, like when I asked this question, everyone, it was like, yeah, the government's not. I know no one really said that. No, actually, it's the stupidest thing you could ever do. That was a good answer you gave me, but that wasn't the answer I was getting back in 2017 and 16 when I was like, whoa. I was like, because I got on TV and said, listen, guys, I don't know. All I know is that if I was the government, like knowing what's going on, oh, yeah, they're going to allow, let's just turn the world over to Bitcoin. That was a combination of people, them saying Bitcoin's going to replace the dollar. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, we're just going to give up control of the economy and monetary policy. The whole world's based on monetary policy, right? So in that sense, what you're saying is that basically it's nothing to do with that at all. It's a sense that just that in terms of if someone's going to commit crimes in the crypto space, the last thing you would do is commit them using Bitcoin because you're going to get caught. And people probably still do and get caught, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of people out there that do that. They think that, Bitcoin is, it's some kind of, shadow currency. Nobody can see what they do, but they're wrong. If you want to launder money, if you want to do nefarious things, use cash, use a dollar, right? Use Federal Reserve notes, because that stuff you can take anywhere in the world.
Bonds.
Right, exactly. So if you really want to be clever, you just take briefcases full of cash and you pay somebody, or you would use privacy tokens and privacy coins. Make no mistake. Again, the only cryptocurrency that is ever going to be, basically that's going to get the pass from the government is going to be a government-controlled cryptocurrency, because we all know governments are all about control. So you'll never see Bitcoin replace the U.S. dollar. It's just never going to happen, right? But you'll see a Fed coin that's coming out in 2022, right? So you will see that cryptocurrency. You've already seen all these digital wallets. I don't know if you go to Asia much, but everything there is done with your phone. They're not using cash. They're not using credit cards. They're using WePay and all kinds of stuff like that. They're already, 4 or 5 steps ahead of the U.S. when it comes to using digital currencies. And so that's why China is actually launching their cryptocurrency. I think it's already out. I think they're already in trials and using it, and that's what you're going to see. So crypto is, in my beliefs, stable coins are good for merchants. Other cryptocurrencies, I think 99% of them are going to just die. They're just silly. They're not going to work. They're going to just basically run out of money, or they're just not going to work for whatever reason. And the ones that do survive, those will be like stores of value. What you're going to see really working, though, is blockchain. So the actual technology itself. I
agree 1,000%. Yeah, I think that's a big thing. What do you think the best uses of blockchain are?
So anything that you want to be able to track from start to finish. So anything that you want complete control over, it could be public, it could be private. It just depends on the corporation and the actual use case for it. But, kind of like, farm to fork, right? So if you wanted to look at the soil, like when it was tilled, what ingredients or fertilizers or whatever actually went into the soil, when the plant was planted, when the plant was, maintained and watered, and more fertilizer and eventually plucked and then put on the truck and then taken to the store. You can track every single, part of the story, across the blockchain. But again, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if it's false data, it's going to be false data. But, just to be clear there. So you can actually track from start to finish of all these different transportation, methods. You could use it for things like vaccines. You could use it for things like pharmaceuticals, making sure the proper, ingredients are used. Checking to see who actually has the actual medications, the pharmaceuticals that you're looking for. When governments say, oh, we don't have any of XYZ pills, we need $20 billion, give us $20 billion and we'll make some. Well, using blockchain, you could actually then see, no, they actually do have those medications or those pharmaceuticals there in stock. So anything you really want transparency for. Most businesses won't use blockchain, right? They really don't need this. But for certain things, and I think logistics, I think it's incredible. Some of the financial aspects of it, I think it's incredible. But for most businesses, it just really doesn't make sense. But for some of the really big things out there, like shipping and receiving, stuff like that, I think it's pretty incredible stuff.
Maybe you could so in the background.
Yeah, I got my parents over, and we're moving from our one spot.
It's a family business, right? Let me ask you. I'll let you go. I want to ask you one more question. A very important question here. I didn't really ask you to explain what blockchain is in very simple terms. I look at blockchain as being a distributive public ledger, basically. So basically, everyone can look at the transaction chain. And because of that, there's the inherent check of legitimacy in all the people publicly looking and verifying the chain. How would you explain to the layperson what is blockchain technology?
I mean, that's kind of a great way that you put it already. Think of it as, for the most part, a public blockchain, okay, not just a private blockchain where you're running all the same code on all your own same computers, all within the walls of your own house. Think of this as let's just talk about Bitcoin. So people all over the world using their own devices, their own computers, are essentially running the exact same code as each other. The good actors, the people that are verifying transactions and checking, saying, yep, everything's good, and they're all in agreement, the people that create the blocks get rewarded. So there's an actual incentive for these people running computers to actually do good work, because then they get paid 6.5 Bitcoin for creating a block of transactions. Now, all these computers can see what's being done. They're all running the same code. So everyone in the world can look at the blockchain, and everything is transparent. So it's a ledger of sorts that everybody out there can essentially view and see all the transaction, who has what, who's done what, all that kind of stuff. So that's about as simple as I can break it down. Just lots of computers running the same code that everybody agrees that everything is, just as it's supposed to be. The people that are good, they're rewarded. The people who are bad, they're kicked out. And everybody in the world can see what transactions happen on the blockchain.
Got it. And getting back now to crypto, right? Could you explain the power usage aspect? I was always, the other thing that was, driving people crazy was the lack of greenness to the whole Bitcoin was like the power usage is more than the state of Poland and, all this sort of stuff. And I know there was, rushes to essentially move these Bitcoin farms, as you call them, to areas that had either excess power capacity, so you get cheap energy, and then also, like I heard people were going to Iceland because you could use geothermal energy, and then also you have the other issue of cooling all these massive computers, right? So there's two sides. What is this? Is someone solved the energy usage problem, or is it still a legitimate problem?
So there's a couple different things that are going on here. So with Bitcoin, it uses proof of work, which requires a lot of computation power. So it uses a lot of energy. Nowhere near as much as like video games, like all your gamers out there, all those guys are using way more energy than Bitcoin ever will, right? But yeah, proof of work, and it's doing calculated math, uses a lot of energy. And so that is still an issue. However, they try to put it in places, like you said, where there is an energy surplus. So there's lots of places where they actually just burn off energy. They just have more than they can use. So they try to put Bitcoin farms in those places, or place where there's, any place where they can get free energy, they try to put them there. Any place where, the geos, they're able to, get cooler temperatures for the servers, they're able to do that. But what's going to be interesting is proof of stake. So right now everything is, for the most part, proof of work. Proof of stake takes a lot of the energy consumption out, to where people are just, instead of doing really complicated math, they're simply just using their bags of cryptocurrency to basically protect the blockchain. And so Ethereum is supposed to be doing that over the next couple of years. And we'll see whether that works or not, because right now everything's just theoretical. Right? I can say, oh yeah, we fixed that problem. Like, well, show me it work. I want to see people using it. I want to see it transacted every single day. We don't have that. And everybody's like, with proof of work, if everybody started using it, then like Bitcoin, the way it's designed now, it would just slow to a crawl. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if proof of stake kind of solves that.
I want to talk about Monarch. Okay. I know you're not anxious to promote your own thing, but still, I checked it out, and to me, I thought it looked like a really elegant solution. So I really want, in my opinion, if someone's going to be doing this, they should be using Monarch. I think it's by far better than anything else I've seen out there. And I've done the last couple of days. I did some investigating on it. So I really want you to explain exactly what Monarch is, what the benefits are, and how someone actually would get started with Monarch.
Sure. So if you have a smartphone, if you have an Apple or an Android, just simply go to the store, the Apple Store, Google Store, whatever, and just download Monarch. It's free to use. It'll allow you to send, store, and receive cryptocurrency without having to worry about anybody ever taking your money, because we don't have access to it. Only you do. Then you can buy, you can sell, you can trade, you can, all the cryptos, most of the major cryptos, right within the wallet. It gives you the ability to track the market. It allows you to track the news, keep up on all the news. It allows you basically to be the monarch. It allows you to be king or queen of your finances. You are the monarch, and nobody else can mess with your funds except you. You can go anywhere in the world and take your crypto with you. If you lose your phone, remember your seed, put the seed in another, just download the Monarch Wallet again from another device, put your 12 words back into it. Like magic, your money comes back. It's amazing. And then for merchants, we created Monarch Pay, which allows merchants to get into cryptocurrency, save a bunch of money in transaction fees, always control their own currency. They don't have to worry about being locked out of their money. They don't have to worry about clawbacks. They don't have to worry about high transaction fees, any of that kind of stuff. We use stable coins and stable tokens. So the merchant doesn't have to worry about all that crazy volatility like with Bitcoin or Ethereum. That's great for speculators. That's great for people holding, but not for merchants. Merchants, they need to know, they got budgets. They have to know exactly how they're going to make payroll. So, and they got fixed expenses. So Monarch Pay solves that for them, and again allows them to become the monarch of their funds, to where only they control it, and they can turn it on or turn it off whenever they want, and it's free. So they can download all this stuff right now, try it out. It's free. It's great. We got some of the best and brightest in all of blockchain. Part of Monarch, we got myself, we got Snay, we got the creator of the smart contract, we got, the co-founder of LinkedIn, we've got one of the founders of, you could almost call him Bitcoin, but he moved to Bitcoin Cash. We got just tons and tons of people that are the best and brightest in the space. And, I just think hands down, it's the best, and it just keeps getting better.
Awesome. Well, listen, I got to tell you, I've never been a fan of the whole space. I've been a fan of blockchain always. I've never been a fan of Bitcoin, but you're the first person that's actually ever given me a sober view of it. I think what drove me crazy with the people that are saying it's going to 1 million, it's going to 100,000, because to me, it's so obvious to me what's going on with that. I guess you could divide those people into two groups: those who are insane enough to actually believe that, because no one has any way of knowing where it's going, and those that are specifically doing that because they're trying to get a new generation of people in to cross them out. Because to go from 9,000 to 12 or 15,000, people have to think it's going to 50,000 to get that big next jump up, or else why invest? And that's what really bothered me. And you and I met. Your view is so different than really anyone else I heard. So just to sum it up, correct me if I'm wrong. You look at Bitcoin as being an excellent, or just a very solid storehouse of value. It's very, very important for people that are living in areas of the world where their own currencies are, not stable, depreciating while the massive inflation in the economy, and sometimes these currencies completely collapse. So in those places, not only is it a storehouse of value, but also can be used for transactions. They'll probably still not that efficient, right? Is that what you're saying?
For the most part, I believe that eventually it's going to be worth more than it is today. How much? I have no idea. This is going to piss off a lot of people in the crypto space, and I really don't care. I've always been a realist. If you go back to the first video that I did on our YouTube channel and TV channel, I did it for friends and family, just asking me how to navigate the waters of cryptocurrency. I said in 2017, I'm like, dude, guys, gals, this stuff can go to zero. This can crash like tomorrow. It's worth way too much money. It makes no sense why it's up so high right now. That was like Christmas Eve, I think, of 2017. Telling people, be very, very careful. Take your money out. Don't put any money in that you're not willing to lose. And then it dumped, right? It dumped in January. So I think eventually it's going to be worth more money. I think that it makes a decent plan B cryptocurrency / currency for people in Venezuela or people that have to pay for goods and services where their dollar fails them. I don't think it is a very good currency for the masses, because as soon as you start getting a lot of people using it, the entire network slows to a crawl. So how are you supposed to pay somebody in Bitcoin when it's volatile, number one? Number two, it could take you a day or two for your transaction to go through when it's supposed to take seconds. And then number three, the fees associated with it. When people start using the crap out of Bitcoin, the fees associated could be, like, if you're a big company, it can be millions of dollars a month that you're paying in fees, like these exchanges have to pay. So it's crazy, but it is an amazing technology. Blockchain itself, Bitcoin is a store of value. What Satoshi Nakamoto created, I still think is one of the most incredible things to ever be created. I just don't like people saying it's going to go to $1 million or go to $100,000 or do all this crazy stuff, because then it starts bringing in other people that end up being suckers. You know, all these people that are trying to say it's going to be, a lot of money, they own a lot of Bitcoin. So it almost looks self-promoting, like they're trying to raise
Exactly.
just so they because they have a price too in their head. When it hits 100K, Max Kaiser, I love the guy, but that's when he plans on selling all his Bitcoin. And that dude has got a lot of freaking Bitcoin, right? So Max is incredible. Love him, super smart, just an incredible guy. But again, when people are out there with all these crazy freaking anticipations of the future price, other people, their ears perk and they say, well, I could maybe put 5-10 grand in this, and kind of like your greater fool theory, right? You just keep coming in, and then those big holders, they dump it, and then it crashes, and like, crap, I guess we'll have to wait another 5 years before it goes back up again. We get a new bunch of people come in. So if people just get into it and they just want to hold it as a store of value, they just want to use it as a plan B currency, I think that's great. But people that really think it's going to go to $1 million or $10 million or stuff like that, you got to be really sane and rational when you're entering the market, and just set your expectations a lot lower. And if it hits that, great. That's amazing for everybody. But will it? Who knows? I don't know.
Warren Buffett referred to it as rat poison squared. What do you think about that?
No, I think he made if you look at a lot of stuff that Warren Buffett's done, like, I respect the guy. He made a lot of money in several industries, but he's missed the boat on a lot of things, like when it came to technology. And then recently, well, not recently, but over the past few years, he got into Apple. When it first came out, all that kind of stuff, he totally was against tech. Now was one of his major holdings. When you look at cryptocurrency, he's been against that. When you look at what he did recently in the stock market, so for instance, the stocks, they crashed due to all this COVID. I went in and bought a ton of United Airlines when the stuff was like $19. It was almost $100 just like a month before. This is crazy. And he's selling all of his airline stocks. He's selling all these stocks. He's just putting money on the sidelines. And then guess what? United and those, they go back up to like 40 something, 35, 36 right now, went up to like 44, 46. All that money he is sitting on the sidelines, could have been in the market, and he would have made some money back. Instead, he sold at a loss. So when he's saying Bitcoin's, rat poison squared, I just think it's because he doesn't have enough knowledge about it. I think he's setting his limits. The stuff that he's done over the years has worked well for him. He's made billions of dollars. And anything that's new, he just kind of dismisses.
Well, I think that is his philosophy, by the way. I think he's got two overriding philosophies. Number one, I do not invest in things I don't understand. And I don't think Warren Buffett's about catching trends. He's the guy that would invest in Bitcoin if it ever made it to like 72,000 because he thought it was going to 81,000. No, he's not the guy. He's the guy that takes sort of like after you're an established. He only really, from my experience, he really prefers established brands that have proven themselves, that are predictable, that are growing predictably, that have great management, and then he waits until they're heavily depressed and tries to buy in at the right time in a proven entity. He's not trying to bet to see what's going to work and what's not. So I guess on some level, Bitcoin just is anathema to his whole investment. It could be anything like Bitcoin that was sort of a nascent technology that hadn't proved itself yet and could go either way. As you're saying to yourself, it could go either way. You never really know. I think it'll be a lot higher. I don't really know. So I think that into itself almost precludes Warren Buffett from even considering it as an investment. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And a lot of people, they go an inch wide and a mile deep in what they understand. That's it. And that works very, very well. And so, Buffett could be doing the same thing. just like he did with Apple, right? He said no, and then now he's one of his largest holdings. He may eventually, like you say, do that with Bitcoin. But when he's just coming out and slandering it, saying it's rat poison squared, I mean, that's just stupid, because it works. It's incredible. Everybody's trying to base their currency off of it. They may not want to embrace, like these federal governments and whatnot, may not want to embrace Bitcoin, but they'll steal the technology and create something of their own with it, right? So I still say it's one of the greatest things ever created. But no, it's not rat poison. But if there's people out there poisoning the well, saying it's going to be $100 million one day, and they're bringing in a bunch of suckers, that I don't like. And a lot of people in the space, they have these outlandish predictions, and they need to realize that they're hurting people doing that. And they just need to be more realistic with things and just say, look, man, you didn't expect it to go to $3,000 and it freaking did. You said it was going to go to $100,000 and it didn't. So shut up. It's just admit you don't freaking know. Nobody knows. Eventually it's going to do something. It may go up, it may go down.
If you had, last question, ready? If you had right now $100,000 that you wanted to invest, but you couldn't really afford to lose it. Let's say it's like, you're a regular person, you're making, let's say, $200,000-$300,000 a year. You've been able to save $50,000-$100,000, right? You got a wife, or you're a woman and you have a husband and you have a child or two, and you want to put this $100,000 to work. You don't want to keep it in the bank because you're not making anything. What would you do with that money?
Go to real estate. I love my real estate. I own a crap ton of it, and I buy more all the time. If you said specifically, what would you do in the cryptocurrency market? Well, then I could tell you that. But
would you put any in the cryptocurrency market if that was your situation?
No, I wouldn't. No, if it was me, I would put it in real estate, because I don't care what government controls. Basically the currency or the land. You have an asset, people are going to pay you rent for it. You're always going to be okay for the most part owning real estate. If you bought at the, in the peak, maybe you're still, maybe you've recovered. But for the most part, real estate, if you look back, from the early 1900s to today, you're probably doing pretty freaking well if you stick your money in real estate. So I'm real estate number one. I love software. I love cryptocurrency. Been in the space since 2011. I get it. I've already got large holdings of lots of different cryptos. So me personally, I wouldn't buy any more. If I wanted to dip my toes in it, then I would spend, probably $95,000 in real estate, and $5,000 I would break out into the three currencies that I spoke about earlier: Bitcoin, Cash, and Ethereum.
All right, last thing, I want to make you a challenge here. I want to bet you dinner. I want to have you. This is going to bet the loser. Ready? Has to take the other one out for dinner in January. On December 31, we're each going to pick a price that we think Bitcoin's going to be at. Whoever's closer, up or down by $1, it's going to be a public bet we're going to make here, all right? Just a dinner, nice good bottle of wine, a couple of laughs, right? I want you to predict it. I'm going to predict. I'll go first, you go first, okay, about where we think Bitcoin's going to end up on December 31 at midnight. Ready?
1 minute. All right, you go first. All right.
I go first. All right, ready?
Let me see where it's at right now.
I don't know where it's at. I don't care. Ready? I don't care. Ready? I'm just going to make my number. Ready? The Svengali, the great Kreskin is thinking 9760.12.
$9,700, huh?
9760.12.
9760.12. All right, so $9,700. All right, so December 31st, we typically have
9760.
I just go one penny above you.
Hey, no, don't do the fucking don't do the Wheel of Fortune thing on. I knew that. I knew you were gonna pull the fucking Wheel of Fortune on me. Don't do the fucking Wheel of Fortune on me. Let's go.
Yeah, I raise you one Toshi.
Fucking no. Let's hear it. Come on, let's go.
I'll just say $10,000, because honestly, I think it'll probably be a little bit more than that, but let's just say $10,000.
Good. All right. So we the Beetle man is at 10,000. I'm at 9760.12. And we will see. And someone's buying. I'm going for fucking Kobe beef. All right, like a really good bottle of like 1945 Chateau Marmont. I can spend money at dinner. Remember that movie, the scene from The Wolf of Wall Street? The sides, $25,000 for sides. I'm gonna find the sides that cure fucking COVID-19. Those are the ones we're gonna offer.
I have a feeling it's gonna cost me more than a Bitcoin.
You are the man. Listen, I love you. You're great. Thanks for coming on the show. You're awesome. Guys, everyone, the Beto. All right, check out his podcast and stuff on YouTube. And really, honestly, guys, for those of you who are doing stuff in the crypto space, please check out Monarch. I've looked at it myself. I do not own any Bitcoin or any other crypto, but I looked at it before the show, and I think it's awesome in the space. It makes a lot of sense. And as you can tell, Beadles is a legit guy that wants the best for everyone. All right? Thanks for coming on, buddy.
God bless, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.